Welcome back to the Tailosive EV podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited to talk about our worst nightmares in the EV community this week.
Yeah.
But I wanted to check in with you guys first. Randy, Mike, how's the vehicles? Everything okay? Everything
gone. I sold it and then tried to get a 2022 and then it had terrible quality control.
Can we talk about that story first? Sorry, wait, Randy. How's the 3? Is it okay?
The 3
is she safe? Is she all right?
Where's Phoenix? Oh my goodness! I saw a meme. I'm sorry. I have to just deviate really quickly. A meme because I've been posting Star Wars memes. Yes, I saw a meme.
That's Randy's account now.
That's my account lately, and I'm gonna post this one on Twitter too. Where Luke is with Vader on the floor after everything. He's taking off his helmet.
Yes,
but he's like, before the helmet comes off, he's like, he goes, Luke, where is Palpatine? Is he safe? Is he all right? Luke goes, it would appear in your anger, Father, that you killed him. Not again.
Dang it.
Now we can transition to somehow Nicola returned.
Anyway, Model 3's fine. Model 3 is my we're putting it through the ringer this weekend to test out this is my last episode here in this space. I am moving this weekend.
Bye-bye, Randy's space.
Randy's space.
Identical to the San Diego place, but that's okay.
That means it worked.
Yeah.
Next one, though.
It worked.
The next one is going to be intentionally more culture shock, like jumping into the cold end of the pool as opposed to the warm end.
It's all blue instead of yellowish white.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Drew can't be the only one who has like reimagined set designs. So the next one is going to be, it's going to be fun. So anyway, all that to say
version 11.
Version
Randy
11.
V11. Yeah,
that's right, baby. But the Model 3 is gonna hold its own, see how much I can stuff it to the brim. I'm gonna do way more than I did when we left San Diego because we had a truck, a mover truck, do all that stuff. So this one's a little bit different. But the breath of fresh air here is that I'm just going, one block over, so it's fine.
Oh, good.
We're
That's
good.
good.
Yeah, so I got to do a little back and forth, but
you can walk. You can just carry everything.
Not in this humidity. Ooh,
you can use what's it called? The follow mode or the
Smart Summon. Sorry.
Smart Summon. Use Smart Summon. Just have it follow you.
I really need like an enhanced Smart Summon. Little side story real quick. We do this thing with our friends sometimes where we drive and take these inner tubes to a little parking lot by a river. And we park one car at the bottom, and then we all drive to the top, and then we ride the river on the tube down.
Floating.
And then get into the bottom car, and we all drive back to get the OG car. And I was like, if we had enhanced Smart Summit or something, and
that would be cool.
Maybe it's not on the highway, but just the car goes on this little back road and drives back to us. We could do this
Tesla
all with
Vision
one car.
would be able to help with, being able to navigate any twists and turns. Mm-hmm. Listen,
it's a very
autopilot,
basic road. It's not like a complex city street. There's no stoplights or anything. It's like one left turn, and it could totally do it. I'm sure the beta could do it right now, but
yes, because the beta now is we're on FSD beta, not even the newest one. We drove through West Virginia, and West Virginia is the mountain state. And one time we did not take a toll road because it was our first time passing through. So like, no, avoid tolls. Needless to say, we pay tolls now because this was too much. We twist and turned and did. It is nothing like I've ever experienced driving through any of the mountains on the West Coast. This was tedious, and I wasn't even the one driving. So, it's the autopilot. It was able to understand its surroundings. You're driving maybe 3 miles per hour, but it has context about.
So this was not pre-mapped, you think?
Dude, it was bad. Honestly,
well, it's Tesla, so none of it.
West Virginia passing through, or Tesla passing through West Virginia is probably. I don't wish that for anybody because that was tedious. Just stay on the interstate.
Only reason I say that is it's probably not capable of doing that with Blue Cruise or Super Cruise or any of the third-party because they have to pre-map everything.
This struggled so where like and just like that's the thing where like in place it like imagine coming to a complete stop and the tires just go and then it like it does that thing and I'm like, oh no. So if it can navigate that without being rushed, no cars behind it, because it will go 5 miles per hour. You're better just walking the thing.
It is safe.
It is safe. It does want to be careful about that. If it could do that, then I think any enhanced smart summon or follow mode or whatever you want to call it, where it's tracking you with the camera.
If they limited it, like maybe that's how the rollout will go, based on how slow the beta rollout has been. Like if we ever do get to level 4 where it's driving with no person in it, I bet that would be one of the restrictions. You can use summon on a public street within like a 5-mile radius, like it can't go very far. You have to be close-ish, but within these areas it can drive. And in that use case where we floated down the river, I was like, this would be ideal.
Yeah.
Could do all this with one car instead of having everybody drive out there. But Mike brought up something that I really wanted to dive into, which was the news story about the guy who had a 2021 Model Y, and the prices have gone up so much, so he sold it at a profit and used it to buy a 2022 Model Y. But he was very upset because the build quality was bad on his 2022 Model Y. So
high risk. I would not recommend it. But you at least in the deal, he gets some nice new interior features like the matte center console and the
dual
heated
pane glass.
Yeah, the dual pane glass, the heated steering wheel, the HEPA filter.
What did it cost?
Build quality and quality control and all that. Yeah. It's interesting how people use their cars these days, or at least specifically with Teslas. It's almost like what you guys talk about on the tech podcast with kind of flipping phones, right? Not flip phones as in the flip phones that Samsung makes, but flipping them as in selling them for maybe not profit necessarily for phones, because you're not going to sell 13 for a profit.
We're not supply constrained with phones. However, with cars, we are.
Especially with Teslas. You could definitely, if you play your cards right, probably sell enough of them to buy yourself a Roadster reservation or something else.
I can guarantee both of you could probably flip your cars right now and at a profit.
With the new price hikes, oh my goodness, yeah. I could buy
I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just saying you could if you wanted to. It would be possible. Someone would buy your vehicles for more than you paid, for sure.
Do you think, Drew, that somebody would include in the cost my FSD?
I don't think they would value it at $12,000, but yeah, I do think they would be willing to pay more for a car with FSD. That's one thing I don't follow either. People are like, it improves your resale value if you buy FSD. I'm like, but with the take rate being likely, at least Detroit Tesla, like he kind of polls thousands of Tesla owners and stuff. He said current data suggests that the take rate is around 12% for people actually buying it outright. So your addressable market shrinks a lot. Like the number of people that would actually be willing to buy a Tesla with FSD goes down a lot, because you're going to be competing with Teslas that don't have FSD that are likely cheaper and with less miles, and someone can just, I could buy FSD later or I could subscribe. So it's just,
you have some people who
look
don't
at it
even
as a huge value. I just think the fact that you have long range Teslas that won't have a wait time, that's enough.
That's that right there. People don't care. Okay, wait, no, people care about the technology that's being put into it, but that's not their driving force about buying these EVs currently.
Because they can get that later. They can get that in the future.
They can get
Pricing
that later.
Can change.
Most people understand that this is an early adoption phase, and all that stuff is going to improve. And right now, which you just said, Drew, nail on the head, is that the wait time is the most important thing, next to the fact that why is the wait time important? Because they don't want to wait longer to have to, if you have a gas vehicle, that's all that time you're still spending money on gas. The gas is the driving factor, not necessarily the autonomous technology that's being implemented, which is objectively really cool stuff. No one is refuting
It's a great
that.
bonus, but it's not the driving
It's
force.
a bonus. Yeah. It's no different than getting. Okay, it is. No, that's not fair. It is different, but I would compare it to like, is it cool if my car comes with CarPlay? Yes. It's not the deal breaker.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's like that. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
I think.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say a nice example is our friend Nick, who we still miss and hope you're doing okay, Nick.
Dear
Shout out
he's
to Nick.
fine.
He's busy.
He's busy as heck. He's one who ordered a performance Model Y. Why order performance Model Y in general, unless you really want a high performance SUV for some reason? But yeah, time is the factor. He wants to stop paying for gas. So
Yeah.
a lot of people are willing to, but with the prices going up to like what a base Model Y costs now is what mine costed with a Midnight Silver Metallic add-on with the sport rims and all that and FSD.
Right.
It's insane. And that's just the Model Y. Model 3 and S and X have also seen crazy jumps to the point where
Dude,
it's like...
There's not a single Model X that's 5 figures anymore. That blows my mind.
Or S.
Or S, yeah. I'm the premium side of it. Those guys
S and X are all 6 figures.
are all sick. Like, whoa. If
That's
anything,
before tax.
Before tax, how do you think that affects the used market with people who are trying to buy or sell then? Because I feel like people who are trying to sell the used, that also helps them because the S and X are seen as the luxury premium versions of the 3 and Y. And
Yeah.
if not, you're gonna get a higher sell. You're gonna have more interest. Like, you're not gonna have an issue selling your Model S at all, even if it's an older 2016 or older version that has the old design. So like, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, of course, free supercharging, and it's not 6 figures. Done.
Right. If it's not 6 figures, that's good.
Hindsight's
point.
2020. I should have bought 5 of those 69 420 Model S's.
I was just about to
Here we go.
mention that. The
What?
performance Model Y is now more than the Model S was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's reached the
mind-blowing.
point now where it's surpassing S pricing of a couple of years back, which is mind-boggling. But this guy that, you know, I'm not saying it's okay that Tesla has spotty quality control, but I think it's starting this new phenomenon that I'm starting to see unfold. You talk about smartphones too, and people upgrading those. Because Tesla is such a technology-driven, software-focused vehicle, probably more so than any other, about like what version are you running and what processor does it have, and you know, what's the display resolution, and we talk about that with Teslas. We don't talk about that with almost any other EV. What processor does the Lucid Air have? You know, what GPU is in the Rivian? No one talks about that, but Tesla has kind of leaned into this tech enthusiast community that I'm almost not okay with it. I'm getting to the point now where it's starting to annoy me because I'm starting to realize, and I want to know the percentage. What number of people are buying Teslas to replace their old Teslas? What number of people are like, oh, I'm going to rent this out on Turo, or I'm going to flip this? You know, like even Mike's friend was thinking about doing it with her Model 3, right?
Yeah,
she was
she's
like,
abandoned that idea now with the prices.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad she wants to keep it, but I just mean I'm noticing it on Twitter and Reddit a lot of people just like, oh, well, the trade-in value is so good, or the resale value is so good, and they've already added a couple things to the new Model Y or the new Model 3, so I'm just going to sell my old one and upgrade again, and that's, like it or not, that's increasing the backlog. That delays new customers. Maybe I'm biased because that's me. I'm waiting on mine and I want it now, and I'm annoyed that it's taking so long. But there's so many people now that are like flipping and reselling their old Teslas because the resale value is so good, and preventing gas car owners from making the switch. And it's because it's such a tech enthusiast brand that they're willing to do that. They're like, well, it's only $4,000 more, and I can get the newer processor, I can get the new Windows, like, and I'm like, well, that's not gonna stop. No. That's the concerning thing. Is like,
especially with Tesla.
Yeah, Tesla's always updating stuff. Like when a 120 hertz Model 3 comes out, that's gonna throw my plans all off. That's gonna make me go like, wait a minute, how much is ours? But
no, wait, wait.
wait. Exactly. So that's what I mean by I do not have a belief that Tesla will just resolve this demand problem. Like, over time, people will stop buying these things once they kept up with production, because the more people that buy them, the more the tech community side comes out and says like, oh, well, they're low in stock and high in demand, so I'm just going to sell mine and get a new one. And that this loop continues. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think, if you're annoyed or upset by the prices being so high, like the reason Tesla can get away with this is because people are willing to upgrade so often. They treat it like a phone. They treat it like a laptop because the tech in it, and they want it to be, well, if it's only a couple grand more in my car, people use their cars a lot for commuting or long trips. So they're like, if that little feature only costs me a couple grand, then I'll do it. That's just going to create this vicious cycle of upgrading of, actually, not every Tesla we build is going to a gas car owner. A lot of the Teslas we're building are going straight to former Tesla owners. So. Yeah,
or it's just the next vehicle in that family of Tesla owners where they already
right.
have
They're like, this is so great, I want another one.
I already have a 3 in Y. I'm just going to add an X to it, and then we'll get the S later. It's like, okay. I think the only good thing about these price hikes with Tesla is it makes the Cybertruck more likely to come out sooner, because these prices are going higher and higher. So it justifies the price for the Cybertruck being 130, 150 at this point, right? Because Elon Musk was saying earlier that the reason why they could make the Cybertruck now, but the reason why they're not is because they want to make it affordable. Well, already Teslas are not affordable for most people, and a Model Y now costs the same amount as a Model S 2 years ago. And inflation hasn't really gone that high, in my opinion, enough to where that's justifiable. But they've gotten their prices so high, I think the Cybertruck could easily fit either between the S and X or above the X. And
it would sell.
People still buy it. So,
man.
That's a hilarious way of looking at it. I love that perspective. I've never thought of it that way.
I'm not worried about the Cybertruck coming out anymore because of these prices. It's guaranteed.
Because as Tesla raises prices, they are able to find proof of what people are willing to pay for their vehicles.
Yeah.
Like, if the orders keep coming in, even with the Model X at 140,000.
I'm seeing new ones on the road every day. Model S's and X's. I'm seeing
the Model X outsold the Bolt.
What?
It's like 6 times the price. More people bought it.
It's definitely not a demand problem.
It's such a fascinating market, in my opinion. Like, no other market is like this that I can think of. Like, most markets, whether it's streaming, whether it's movies or phones or laptops or restaurant, it's all just based on like who can like sell the most product, right? Like, who can create the most desirable product, who can collect the most demand. And with EVs, it's so who can build the most. It doesn't matter who builds the cheapest or who builds the longest range. It's just about who can build the most. And Tesla has that better than anyone, so that's why they're selling the most. It's so weird.
It's like the Tesla execs are behind their door and they're like, surely they'll stop ordering once we increase it by another 50 to 60, maybe even 70,000. They'll surely will slow down the. Oh my God! They ordered it. And they just.
It's the meme of everyone laughing and spitting their tea out. They're still buying them.
And then I told them it's gonna start at 105,000.
Do you think it's caused the inverse effect? Like their thought process was to taper demand to raise prices, but instead that just made people want to order more because they're trying to lock in?
You will never have Tesla say on the record that, like, yeah, we're trying to get people to stop ordering these things, because that does.
I know, they would never.
They will never say that. But realistically, I don't even know. To be honest, I don't even think they care anymore about that. Like, they always say, like, we got to think big picture here because we're a big picture company. That once this is online and that's online and we got these cells rolling out, and it's always like once this one thing, and then we'll address the current issue. But it's always once this one, like they're so focused on the once this part is blank that that anything that happens, pre-orders, chip shortage, gas problems, inflation, all secondary byproducts of an result that has nothing to do with, like, we're just trying to get this done, because we've been focused on this, and this is what our team is. And I used to think that this was them trying to curve something. I am beginning to actually think they are more focused than I think I initially gave credit for, that they're so locked in on these other things that don't necessarily have to do with the vehicle themselves, but just getting their infrastructure, not the like, just with these factories, just getting that locked in. Yeah. Because Elon wants to reduce make the Cybertruck more affordable, as he stated, right? That Mike just said.
Affordable like might mean under $1 million.
Maybe, but everything that they're working on the foundational level, that infrastructure, that's all they care about, and they have to be thinking. That's where that tech side of the company comes in, where don't think automobile, think tech by design, because they are always thinking 2-3 years ahead of whatever the current hill they're trying to conquer right there is. And the automobile part is, I think, a bit more cut and dry. Do we have the parts? Can we ship them out? Can we deliver? If not, then there's restraint, put away. Like, I feel like that's the easy part. And that's so naive for me to say, and I acknowledge that, but it's the everything else. It's getting to the point. It's the reason why Tesla did make it when others aren't, or they might not, because of they're focusing on this one part. The byproduct is we have to raise the cost here. We have to do. I don't think they care who the customer is. They're so focused on really internal. They're so focused on the internal that us external people, the most they have to do is appease maybe shareholders, because they're a public company and they have to show, profits, and that they like seeing quarterly profits. That's always, that's what it is to be an investor in this market. But we're not going to have an issue like that with Tesla. We've talked so many episodes about very little debt, most profitable company.
The least debt of any automaker.
Yeah. So if we're talking now automobiles, by far none, Tesla is the one to beat. It's the staple that they compare themselves to. So outside of, having good shareholder meetings and having these whatever day, whether it's battery day, AI day, whatever day, something has its moment to shine. But outside of that, it's all internal. These guys are so focused on trying to get, and I believe them. I do believe that their only focus is getting the infrastructure figured out. They're not even focused on the necessarily the cars that are rolling out. Does that mean this poor guy who got a 2020, 2021, then a 2022, and he's getting a bad quality control one? Okay, maybe, sure. But, obviously Tesla's going to, all right, bring it in. We'll fix it. If there's panel gaps, we'll fix it. Like, obviously, it's under warranty. Like, my car is still under warranty. Like, things are just under warranty. Like, okay, there's a problem, bring it in. We'll deal with it afterwards. But get the customer what they want.
What's
Let's
funny
get back to what
is,
we're focused on here.
Yeah. What's funny to me about that is it's like this self-destructive, what's it called? Prophecy. Because the reason
prophecy.
the reason Tesla doesn't care about the quality control that much, to the point that, maybe we should shut down the line and update it and find a way of ironing out these kinks, is because there's so many people ordering. So it's like you are enabling them by ordering a new model, because you're proving to them I'm willing to pay this, then I've got the money now. And if enough people actually stopped ordering and caused a demand problem, then Tesla would be incentivized to, let's run some polls. Why aren't people ordering? Let's look at reasons for people not buying. And if high on that list was quality control and build quality, then they would say, okay, we need to address that. That's the limiting factor now. That's what's preventing EV adoption. So let's update our factories. Let's improve the quality control. But he himself ordering that vehicle is encouraging Tesla to not fix the problem.
Right.
And I don't know about you guys, but I feel kind of hypocritical in a way, because I've reached a point with, the price hikes that were applied a few days ago, and I've been at some family gatherings recently, and people are complaining about gas and asking me about EVs and what I recommend. And I don't really recommend Teslas to like people in my personal life.
No.
I say, well, I want one, but I want it for like the software and the tech, and and I always emphasize that it's very display based. Like the first example I always describe when I'm trying to like not convince someone is, say, the glove box doesn't even have a latch. Like you open the glove box through the display, and they're like, "What? That's weird." And I was like, "There's no key. There's no driver
CarPlay."
display." Yeah. Well, these people don't know what CarPlay is, but still, I just mean like, if you're looking for, I was just talking to my mom about it yesterday. I was like, if you're looking for like a town car that you're getting groceries with, and I was like, how often do you road trip with your car? And she's like, not really that often. And I was like, I would get the Bolt if I were you, because that's so cheap, and that's going to easily charge at home and get you to town and back, no problem. And you'll bypass gas, and it's got a decent amount of cargo space. If you want to haul 5 people, you can. And the entry price with the new 2023 model, I was like, if you're just looking for a vehicle that doesn't use gas, Tesla's not my first recommendation anymore. Mm-hmm. It may have been 5 years ago.
Are you just saying that because you want your order to come quicker?
I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a piece of that aspect of just like the demand is too high. And I think it'd be better if Tesla got to the point where they could deliver within a few weeks. But it's more about the price to me. Like, if someone asks for EV advice, the first biggest concern they have is the price. It's not even really the range that much anymore. Like, people are just saying, gas is so expensive, but EVs are so expensive too. So if I come forward and say, well, you should buy a $60,000 Model 3 or now a $70,000 Model Y, they're going to be like, well, that's not worth it, because the break-even point is so far away. It's like, it's going to take me 50 years to hit the break-even point on that car, or whatever it is, 40 years or 30 years.
Do you see Tesla then being that Lucid-like branding then, where it's a luxury vehicle then? Is that why you don't want
kind
to?
Of a weird.
I think they'll be on the edge. I think there'll be that nice transition for if you want to go bougie but not break the bank necessarily. You can go for a Tesla. It's like an app. It's like Apple, right? I mean,
that's
they're
what
always
I was thinking.
compared to
it's
Apple.
Kind of
basically.
like the iPhone. Yeah.
Since everyone compares Tesla to Apple, I guess we'll do it again. Commit the cardinal sin, I guess.
I mean, if the boot fits.
If you want a great camera with a pretty good display, well, probably not this one because you guys are like, ugh, but like a 13
I love that
or whatever.
phone. What you mean? That's a great phone.
No, that phone's great.
Okay. Well, anyways, if you want something that performs well, it does all the things you need it to do, and there is a tiny bit of a learning curve, but there's not much customizability, and it's a very great user experience. Go with the iPhone/Tesla, but you're gonna have to pay a premium for it.
Right. iPhones are not
Otherwise-
known for being the most affordable option. That's not why they sell well, is for their
Right.
affordability.
Or do what I do, and my in-laws were over the other day, and I was telling them about the Ioniq 5 and EV6, saying, hey, these are really great vehicles. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why they're not selling like hotcakes, but from what I've seen, and which I'll be test driving EV6 in the next week or so.
Cool. Please film it.
I'll try.
Film what you can, at least.
It's basically going to be the same situation, or the same close look and feel as the Ioniq 5. But anyways, You can't go wrong with those necessarily. They've got decent range, around 300 miles, and they're for
And fast charging is pretty good too.
yeah, and they've got the space. They're hatchbacks, but they cost around the same as actually a little bit less than a Model 3. So
I think a lot less. Yeah,
I think they start at 44. But yeah.
Oh, okay. I forgot. The rear-wheel drive didn't go up in price, but the long range is insane now. Like $11,000 between rear-wheel drive and long range.
Something like
It's
that.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after tax, the Model 3, basically every Tesla that doesn't have LFP is over 60 grand now.
Jeez.
Comfortably over 60.
So much for that $30,000.
Remember
Promise.
35?
Remember that?
Deal of the century. They sold that for like 5 days, I think. They had it on the website.
For as much as I can, kick myself for it. I'll bring it up every chance I can. I miss the standard range Model Y.
Oh, yeah. That was a steal at the time.
It just feels like it was kind of like a yesterday feeling to me, and that car, for size, for price, for the specs, or not specs, but the what you get inside the cabin and everything, man, that car was. We didn't deserve it, or when you needed it most,
We were not worthy.
we're not worthy.
I remember
yeah.
the exact time it came out. I was sitting on the couch with my wife, and it was the weekend, and we were making plans and stuff. And then Mike texted me. It was like 7:00 at night. He was like,
It's
"Look,
here."
it's here!" And I was like, "Honey, I need to make a video." She was like, "Okay." So I put up the camera.
Honey, we need to make a reservation.
I know. In hindsight, we really should have ordered at the time. I don't remember what our I don't think financially we were ready for it.
You could have gone alone, and you would have had to tough it out. But then
true.
you'd have one of the most rare, well, maybe not one of the most rarest Tesla models out there, but you'd have a pretty good
Close.
story.
Probably pretty close. I don't know how many they built. I'd be interested to find that out. Like, they definitely exist. There's people that got them, but they're just driving around with the biggest smile on their face every time they see another Tesla. They're like, they paid $20,000 more. Now it's like $26,000 more than it started at, which is a whole bolt more. It's a whole. They rose the price on the Y, a whole Chevy Bolt. But that was a question I wanted to bring up to you guys, because I know there's like two different ways to answer this, but there's probably a lot of people right now that wanted Teslas but just can't justify the cost anymore. So I wanted to ask you two for two answers. One, factoring in cost, and one, not factoring in cost. What EVs would you recommend to people that, if they couldn't get a Tesla? So like one that you would say, this one counts with the price point, and another that you would be like, I would get this if price didn't matter.
Okay. Ooh.
Because I think there'd be very different answers depending on price.
Immediately my brain went to a different answer for each one, but
Okay.
okay, so factoring costs as in not just the cost of the vehicle, but any I'm interpreting that as even range, because someone like I think there's a big difference between something that has a range of like 150 to
Right.
even double that, to even like 250 minimum, which okay, it's easier to answer the non. Do you already have the answer, Mike? Because I could sit on this a second longer and formulate.
I could
Randy's
probably
gonna be
come up
careful.
with one right now. If money was not an issue, this one's pretty obvious because of my shirt. I'd probably get a Rivian R1T. Or probably... So, the dream vehicle is the R1... Between, I guess, the really cool cars. The dream vehicle is the R1T. The realistic one is probably the R1S, because my wife loves the R1S. I'm okay with the R1S. If we have a whole bunch of kids, we're set up, ready to go, and it's an adventure vehicle and has all the cool things besides the pass through.
Yeah, the gear tunnel.
The gear tunnel. I keep on forgetting the name of the gear tunnel. But otherwise, the R1T would probably be, if I had infinite money, I'd probably get that, even though it's not efficient. Though I guess I've got infinite money, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the money doesn't matter.
In terms of actually, money's a factor.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of tough since I already own the Y, but
Right.
I'm looking at this list that we used for the tier list, by the way, and honestly, probably if I were to go out and buy an EV today, assuming I've got enough, probably the Ioniq 5.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
I see them on the road. They look awesome. They're a little bit bigger than you think because, of course, the pictures make it look like a squished down, like Veloster or something like that.
It was way bigger than I thought when I actually saw it in person.
It's the same with like the EV6. You see it and you're like, what the heck am I looking at? And then you get close to it. It's like, oh, cool.
The Ioniq 5 has like the ratios of a compact, but it's like scaled up. So like pictures of it make it look smaller than it is.
Exactly. So probably I'd end up realistically with the Ioniq 5. I can't really buy a Tesla today unless the Y, either someone bought it for a really good price, which I would never sell it, or it got in a wreck and insurance gave me all the money back. Then I'd try to get another Tesla again. But otherwise, yeah. Ioniq 5 and R1T. What about you, Randy?
Okay. That's a good answer.
Polestar because it's going to have CarPlay.
Oh.
The Polestar 2?
I like your reasoning.
Or the Polestar 3 that's upcoming?
Probably the 2, I imagine. But
2 today, 3 tomorrow.
3 when the 3 is out that.
Okay, so I'm looking at the list because I wanted to see what the price is. 45. Okay, so 46.
For a caveat, in which we could put this in the video as well, but for the price and range, they don't equate for base. So that's the base price matched with the highest range. So kind of like how automakers market their cars.
Okay. I like that. All right, cool.
And the Tesla list is all dated now, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Naturally. So I have heartily, jokingly said Polestar, but I do care personally about the UI, the you're spending your life in the cabin. The cabin has to be the most important factor for me outside of the obvious range, battery, reliability, blah 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 blah. Like the cabin is the deal breaker for me. So if it was me, if I was talking to, so I hesitated when you first asked this question, Drew, because this is kind of like where we're in now, Brittany and I, about what we want to do. And
because the Tesla's somewhat out of the question now.
Well, I mean, our kid will be 2 years old by the time we get a Model Y.
So a little bit too late. Well, might be on time, but you'll be suffering through car seats.
Not if it's the base Model Y. No, they'll be born by then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like anyway. So I have to remove Tesla from the equation because I actually agree with Mike that I would take a Rivian. I would do the R1T, my Forest. If price is not a factor,
Randy Green.
I would spec that truck out personally for me because it's what would fit my lifestyle now. It's big enough. It has a bed, and literally right now I could use a bed right now to move. Like I need something that I can put stuff in the bed and move stuff. So True. I'm over here this week, and I'm like, man, I wish I had a truck. So I am kind of blinded by my necessities today as opposed to yesterday. So the R1T, if I could get it right now. But you're asking like if I was to recommend it to anybody, and therefore price is a factor. I would have to. Yeah. I would have to look at like the Ion, or I guess the Ion IQ 5,
Ioniq
like
5, Iconic.
Yeah.
Well, so if we're looking at the cheap, I don't agree with cheaper. It is tough because I wouldn't. I want to say
cheaper's not better, but
I know that's the thing. I want to say Bolt,
exist.
but the Bolt You know, like
It's a bolt.
it's a bolt. This is tough. This is like I don't see a good answer here, because if you're just trying to get an EV and a VV, I think I'd say VW, because I know most people who have the ID4, or not ID4, but the Golf. A lot of people got that back in San Diego, and they're happy with it. Huh?
People love the Golf. I see them everywhere as well, but all trims. It's not just like the GTI. It's the e-Golf and the regular, I think, GT or whatever. They're everywhere. People love that thing. I think I'm looking. Yeah, one. I
mean, people buy the Leaf, but the Leaf has been around so long. It's more of the Leaf is the Toyota Prius equivalent for EVs. Like, it's just there.
It just has the stigma.
Yeah, it has the stigma with it, but people get it because it's a Leaf,
But it's very practical, just like the Prius was.
That's why I like to compare it. But I personally, I don't think I would recommend the Leaf. But
it's the responsible choice, not the fun choice, basically.
I mean, if you have options, you have options. Okay, so
it's like the salad of the buffet. It's literally a Leaf.
Why would you say that?
Good,
because Leaf is
okay. So
it's like every week we get comments about the Leaf is awesome. I love the Leaf, and I'm like, I know, it's salad.
I know
it's the Caesar salad.
It's boring.
There's a reason why they're selling them with the Titan on the East Coast.
I am biased a little bit here because before the Tesla, I had a Volkswagen Jetta, and I know people who have the Golf. So I would say get a Volkswagen. That was the best new car I ever bought. That was my first new car experience, and it was great. It was amazing, and I can only imagine what that experience would be like now with an EV. And people who I know in my life who did get them have nothing negative to say. They just said, I got it because I just at the time couldn't afford the Model 3. And then now I'll text them, what do you think about? They're like, I really can't afford a Tesla now. They're like, obviously I would take the Tesla if I could, but the wait's too long and it's just too expensive. So they're like, I'm fine with my VW. I'm like, sweet, cool. I think for cost, I'd say the Golf. Get the Golf or ID4. You will be okay. And I personally enjoyed German engineering, and I really liked the Volkswagen more than I ever thought I was going to. I just was never emotionally attached to it. It was just a very practical car. So cost base, Volkswagen. If throw costs out the window, get the that's for me. That's not fair. That's for me. If cost is not a factor, get the S or X. That's to me is if money's not a factor and you can do whatever you want, then get the staple. Get what everybody compares it to.
I have a quick question, Drew.
All right.
Are we also including cars that will probably come out in the next year? Because I forgot and realized that the Canoe and Aptera are technically options. They just don't exist yet.
I don't want to include those.
Yeah.
There should be. Yeah, I would say probably not, just because the situation I'm in right now is interacting with like family members and friends, and they're annoyed with gas prices, and they're like, what should I do about this? Should I invest in an EV? And if I said, hope that the Canoe comes out next year, they're going to be like, please. What? Yeah. So when they come out, different story. If they start delivering, that's when I'd be like, yes, Aptera, if you can live with a two-seater, I think is going to be the best value vehicle, period, gas or electric. If you're comfortable with a two-seater, that's going to be like impossible to beat. Like the solar charging, the efficiency is going to be this massive step change on top of gas savings. Like the way you compare an EV to a gas car, you'll have to compare an Aptera to an EV. Like
that's
a normal
amazing.
Like that's how much cheaper it is to run. So you'd have to factor in like the break-even point of an Aptera versus it's like a fraction of the energy that a lot of EVs use, and like
that's a good
an
point.
even tinier fraction of gas.
I like
so
that.
It'd have to come down to, can you live with a two-seater? And if you can, then great. But if not, then
if at any point you considered getting a Roadster, then look at the Aptera.
True. Good point.
Very cheap roadster.
That's right.
Very cheap.
So there's my answers.
You-
Volkswagen, Model S, or
Good
X,
answer.
depending on what it is. Because, try
The
it
only
and true, baby.
caveat was I did say a non-Tesla, but I get.
Oh,
your
I'm
point.
sorry.
I get what you're saying.
Wait. Okay, I have my runner.
I know what
then.
you're saying. If the price isn't a factor, then why not the Tesla? So,
Yeah, no. If price is not
kind of
a
a weird
factor,
question.
no, non-Tesla, I take that back. If price is not a factor, I would get weird with it. I would say do Rivian. Do someone who's new. Give somebody the Tesla chance that can be like the next up and coming, because I am a believer in Rivian and I like Rivian. I like their products. And I'm a little biased, but also the fact that I think they nailed the truck. Personally, everything that they show about it,
They did.
I didn't get the pleasure to see it in person like you guys did, so I can only speculate from what you guys have done. But just what I've seen,
You've only
from
seen the
afar.
Cybertruck in person. That's all.
And that's not an option, unfortunately. So Rivian would
No,
be the
it isn't.
non-cost factor. Get a Rivian. Just screw it. Have fun with it. At that point, that means
Screw
you're having fun. So
That's their tagline on the.
screw
On
it.
the
It was 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
you would
Screw it.
smoke Model 3s and Ys off the line, no problem.
Heck
And
yeah.
you're a truck.
And you're a pickup truck, which is pretty amazing. So
What's
those
yours,
are good
Drew?
answers.
What about you, Drew?
Oh, I guess I should answer. You both had good choices. This might be a little unfair because I haven't test drove it yet, but just knowing about the shared platform between the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 and how many components those two share, I have a religious thing against the white bezels. Like I can't recommend a vehicle with white
I have a
bezels.
cross
So
here.
EV6 fixes that problem, but it's almost the same battery and charging tech as the Ioniq 5. So while I haven't test drove it and I haven't seen one up close in person, based on the exterior and interior design, I would say if you're looking for an EV that you plan on road tripping in, EV6, because that's got the fast charging. And I'll give a little shout out here to Out of Spec, Kyle from Out of Spec and all the people that work there. They have opened my mind to a lot when it comes to non-Tesla charging. Like,
Tell me.
I personally believe that there is a false predetermined bias that a lot of people in the EV community have, that just supercharging is amazing and fantastic and Electrify America is crap and unreliable. Like, I agree that there's probably aspects of supercharging being better in certain scenarios and EA not being as available, but the situation that they've run in, they've done these cross-country races basically with EVs, and they get Teslas, they get Taycans, they get EV6 Ioniq 5s, and they compare them all in how they do on these cross-country drives. And he kind of proved that if you know what you're doing, what the main outcome of their race test with the EVs going from, I think it was like Colorado to Las Vegas or something, was that if you know how to charge and you know which station to use and you're just kind of knowledgeable about where to charge and how to charge, the Taycan won. It beat the Teslas. Mm-hmm. And another factor that we might have to consider is like, okay, yeah, Tesla builds more EVs than anyone. They can scale up production faster. But one of the side effects is there are more likely to be waits and lines at superchargers than EA stations, because Electrify America is expanding and they're putting in more and more chargers, but all the non-Teslas are not ramping very fast. They're not selling as high a volume as Teslas are. So there were several points in that road trip, and I checked the comments, and a lot of Tesla owners were attesting that this would be a similar story in California, is that you could end up at a really, really busy supercharger. So the charging speed is worse, and there's lines, and it's busy. Whereas people that are doing road trips with Electrify America don't have that big a line because there's just not as many non-Teslas to clog up the network. So even the non-Teslas on that race video they did were showing up either ahead, or if they were behind, it was by like 40 minutes or 30 minutes. It was not like this EV won't make it there, this EV will die on the highway, and the Tesla will make it. And I think that situation of the supercharger network being this huge advantage is in reality not that huge an advantage. I know that there's more superchargers, but EA is growing, and a lot of EA has 350 kilowatt charging speed. No supercharger supports that yet, but there's a growing number of 350 kilowatt super fast charging EA stations, and there's more EVs on the road that don't necessarily charge at 350, but they can charge at a high over 200 for a sustained period. So I was very impressed with those videos, and it kind of convinced me that, well, if you're going to go with a Tesla, I don't think it should purely just be for the supercharging anymore. Like, I think there's proof and evidence that you can do road trip, like the Mr. Yaloa, who I met up with for my fourth grade teacher who has the ID4. I caught up with him a few months ago, and he said he's been doing road trips all across the West Coast. He's been going to Washington and San Diego and back, and he's been driving all over the place, and no complaints with EA charging. So I think they've stepped up the game a little bit, and if you're going on road trips and stuff, the faster charging EVs will make a bigger difference. I don't think total range means that much after a certain number. After you get over 250, 260, that's when it starts to all be more about how quick can you charge. But if you're just looking for a go-getter town car just to drive and get groceries and back, and you don't plan on road tripping, I'll say the Bolt value is impossible to beat. It's the only downside of that Bolt is the charging speed is not great.
It's a
but
Bolt.
the $26,000 is really competitive, and the ID4 is another great option, but I just don't think it charges as fast as the EV6 does.
I like that we all have different answers.
Yeah, I thought that would be more interesting.
I want to push back a little bit on something you brought up with this cross-country road tripping idea, though. Just a little thing. I might be nitpicking here, but I just want to speak.
I'll send you the video if you want.
Please, yeah, no, I would love to see it. This is just something cool. You brought up something I was reflecting on my own experience with, and I have one disagreement.
Okay.
Remove yourself from California for a second. Yes, California is packed with people. You know, it's just it's huge, and there are
Teslas
lines and lines waiting. We experienced it in San Diego when we go to the malls, and every mall I was waiting. I'm like, oh my god. But honestly, remove that from the equation, because we're only talking about people in California, and we have the other, continental 47 states. Me and Mike, I would love to hear your thoughts afterwards too, because I know you've traveled as well. I did not experience lines or waits outside of California, outside the major cities. When I'm road tripping, cross-countrying, you are more likely to be in your rural spots than you will be in these big metropolitan spots. If you're going to stop in a metropolitan area, that might be an equation. But I noticed, whether I did this intentionally or my car was doing it, I never found myself stopping in these major cities. And if I did, they were on the outskirts. And it would calculate the difference on how you plug in, you juice it, and you charge it, and what have you. And I've never had to sit and wait for a stall to open up for me, ever. The only time I had to do it was at every location in San Diego. But it's San Diego, It's not there. Lincoln, Nebraska. It's a hot spot. Out here where I live, there's two in just this little city. And they just opened up the second one. But at no point when I go drive through, even when I get to Colonial Williamsburg, I'm not waiting for nothing. And there are Teslas now out here, but we're not waiting the same way. When I go to DC, I have maybe a wait, but there's so many chargers up in DC that it automatically routed me to the ones that were open. I never had to wait. But with that, I still want to see what the competitors are like, because I don't want to discount how there's alternatives. I don't want to go to just Shell stations. I'll go to AMPM or Chevron. So I mean, if there's the thing that's there, but I've never experienced long wait times. Second thing I wanted to just throw out there is that you said if you know what you're doing and how you're doing it with these other cars, you can get your charges quicker than you go. And true, but what I love about Tesla being our, say it with me, like Apple, is that it just works. You know what you plug in, it gives you the same speeds. You're in, you're out. You don't have to think about it. And that, unlike Apple, literally just works. Best experience ever. So where I don't have to figure it out. I mean, if you want to be number crunching like that, you can, sure. I mean, and we've even talked about it on the show, all of us, about I think these new stations are the ones that even have the faster charging. You know, we've within the supercharging network. So it's something that we've evaluated on it
and that kind of thing.
Right, but it doesn't. That's not the deciding factor. It's like, hey, cool, I want to go and experience that if I can. But for us as Tesla owners, it literally just works, and you just make it work. Now, that's not to take away from anybody else who goes, okay, if I go here, I would be that guy planning it out, but I'm the nerdy guy. I feel bad for, Nana over there who doesn't know no difference, and she's gonna, then yeah, that kind of sucks. But with a Tesla, you don't have to worry about that stuff. So, just my two thoughts on that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll double down on that just because one big distinction, Drew, for superchargers versus Electrify America or anything else, EVgo, ChargePoint, with those other ones that are not superchargers, you kind of have to figure out which stall is what. They have a sticker or a display on them that tells them what is what. Is this a 800 volt one capable of that charging speed, or is it a little bit slower? There's a lot of those cases where people, like you said, Randy, they don't know. They have no clue what they're doing. They're just driving in.
Or more importantly, they don't care.
Or they don't care either. They just drive in and they plug in. Maybe they plug in their bolt into the high peak.
They were complaining about that. Yeah, they were like, it's annoying when EVs that don't have the faster charging take up the fast charging stalls. And they were even suggesting once you get past a certain charging point on your curve, you should switch stalls again. And I'm like, good luck convincing people to be good Samaritans.
Exactly. Where with Tesla, they just put in a whole row of 250 kilowatt. Doesn't matter which one you plug into, you're gonna get a really good charge, even if it shares that charge with an adjacent stall or one behind it, all that. Then that's a little bit of a headache, but still you have that potential to get a higher rate of charge. I think the only courtesy for superchargers in that case is those who are cognizant that if you have stalls right next to each other that are sharing the charge, and there's a whole bunch of other stalls nearby that are empty, that this incoming person who's coming in to charge should not park right next to you or behind you if it's one of those type of chargers. They should be one car space away so that way they get their fastest charge speed. And so do you. That's the only headache with the superchargers, I'd say, from my experience. With the others, which I haven't really experienced at all, but what I've observed is more of like an Android device. I keep on comparing these to smartphones. You have to be a little bit more
plan
cognizant
about it a bit more.
Yeah, there's a lot more planning. You have to figure out what's going on, or else you could still go through the day and have your nice merry time driving, but you might be making everyone else's lives a little bit more of a hellscape, and you probably don't care. But at least with Tesla, if you don't care, you're not really going to be hurting other people.
Yeah, it's not affecting anybody else.
Yeah. So there is that caveat or that outlier, maybe not outlier, but that argument against going for something non-Tesla. But it's not like the end of the world. Just because, like you said, you got to your destination 40 minutes later, maybe it's a time-sensitive journey, maybe it's not. But for instance, I'm going down to San Diego later this year. It doesn't matter if I get there at 8:30 or 9 p.m. in the evening. I'll be there.
That's not gonna make or break the trip.
No, because it comes down to you actually planning the trip of, we need to be here at this time, so that means we should probably leave a day earlier or leave a few hours earlier just in case, give some buffer.
Margin of error.
Yeah. So that's my only apprehension with other EVs. But because we're very much in tune with what's going on, it's not the biggest deterrent ever. And I think vehicles like the Ioniq 5 or the EV6 help with those issues because they already have a very they have a very good capability of charging at a high rate. So it doesn't matter whether you plug into the slow one or fast one, you'll still be fine. And the same goes for a Tesla usually.
People who listen to like us or akin to us, I think those guys are well versed, well educated enough to know how to, like a non-Tesla, know how to hit those charging stations. So not necessarily the pushback is on the people who know what to think, because like I said, I would fit in that category. We all three of us would fit in that category. You know, we know what we're working with when it comes to that, because we're so well depth, you know, just know what we know the field. But just like, you know, when we talk about iPhone cameras, Drew and I talked about, some people, like, they just don't care. They don't know.
What?
They're just like, oh, I wanted to. Those are the people where it's like, I like Mike just said, you have a situation where someone's going to use a fast charging that doesn't even need it, but they're doing it because they just don't know, and they think, well, maybe I might get a little bit
bolt
quick.
at the 350 kilowatts.
and they think it's helping them, and instead they're just hurting the thing. So like,
and they have a right to that spot. You can't like legally force them to move or anything, like an ICE car taking up a charging stalls. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, so
it's like, see, he's plugged in.
It's working. And people who like property campus security or whatever wouldn't probably know any difference either. It's like, oh, yep, that's definitely an EV.
They would just move. They would never intervene.
So they can't say, hey, you can't park your electric vehicle here in this electric vehicle parking spot. Oh, thank you, officer. So
for the record, if they did start enforcing that, that would make non-Teslas way more sucky.
Yeah.
If you had to worry about getting arrested or moving your car. Getting a ticket.
My.
I think our target audience in those categories, people who listen to us, I think, would know the difference. And if they don't, then this is your chance to get educated on it. But it's the people who don't know anything. They just come late to the game. People who are just they're just indifferent. I know people who are very educated people that just don't care or don't know what they don't know. So they wouldn't know that they're using a stall that's not necessarily meant for them, and it's like, oh, it's charging the car, and that's where I think ultimately have the issue with the non-Teslas, is that I don't think, God, I hate to say it, but here's the comparison: Android, iOS. You got all these Android OEMs over here that just, it works, but I don't think they're as much well educated. What we need is everyone to get on that USB-C standard. Then it's different. But until that happens, I get peace of mind knowing of the clarity that you get when you're using the supercharging station. And I am obviously being biased because I'm not in the position of waiting to pick up a Tesla. Sure. So I obviously take my statement with a grain of salt, but just my own observations, I don't see how. It's hard for me to make the case for it, except that everyone that I talk to who have the Golf, for example, the Volkswagen Golf, they charge at home. They don't, whatever. Most of these guys are charging at home anyway, so they don't think about that stuff. When it comes to road trips, those are always the exception, not the rule. And then people, especially San Diego, because most of my friends down there are. We call them implants because they're prior military and they just ended up staying there. So they're not from there. Yeah. When they go home, they fly home. So they're not even driving anyway. So
that's
most
where
of the
my
time.
mom's at. Yeah.
Yeah.
She flies in. She doesn't drive.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that point, it's like, what's the most important day-to-day aspect of something? And which the day-to-day is what you're charging at home, assuming you have the opportunity or the convenience to plug in at home. Even if you're in an apartment, some apartments have dedicated EV stalls for their guys. I've seen that become more of a thing where they're trying to convert older apartments to at least be EV friendly. Definitely even out here in rural spots they're doing it. So if you have those means to do it, then make an educated guess on what's the best bang for your buck. But the road trip thing, that's a hard one, but please send me that video, Drew. I would love to see the comparison of the two.
It was fascinating.
It sounds fascinating.
it's not. I don't think it's an indication that the Taycan is objectively better at charging than Tesla's, but it's an indication of what can be done when you know what you're doing. You know, like when you have expertise in a certain field and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
like, you don't have to convince me that superchargers are better. Don't worry about that. I'm very much. I prefer the connector. I prefer the design. I prefer the software showing up on the display. I prefer
The locations.
the locations, everything. There's usually more stalls at superchargers than there are EA. But the only reason I was bringing that up was because I do think that there's this public perception that I've noticed with people that, you know, what I'm afraid of is someone saying, I can't afford a Tesla because they're too expensive, so I'm just going to keep driving my gas car.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that's the only solution, or there's certain bulls out there that will say, like, if you can't buy a Tesla, you just shouldn't buy an EV, period. And I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe in that, because I think that, like we mentioned earlier in the show, that this tech community focus on upgrading and like reselling and trading in and upgrade, that's going to result in the Tesla demand is just going to continue like this. What I'm trying to preface and warn people of is, I don't think that there's this point we're reaching where, okay, they caught up, now the prices go down, stay tuned, that $25,000 Tesla, it's coming out in a couple of years. Like, don't count on it. It'd be great if it did, but do not count on that. And there's certain people, you know, there's a lot of people in the EV community watching content that aren't necessarily driving EVs yet, but they want to, and they're interested in what's coming out. And of course, there's a lot of hype and a lot of interest in $40,000 Cybertruck and $25,000 Tesla. And there's a lot of hype in that, and I'm trying to justify it and say, like, the non-Teslas, you can live with that, like, and enjoy it. You can buy an EV that's not 50, 60 grand and still have a good time with it. And don't have the belief that Electrify America is like impossible, you'll be stranded out in the freeway. Because I think there's a lot of people that still believe that are convinced, like, well, it's not a Tesla, so it's not going to make it. We can't drive there. It's like,
it's only getting better. It's only getting better.
It may require a bit more planning, and you might have to learn a bit more about charging stalls and charging speeds and charging curves, but that education will pay off. If that education allows you to save $20,000 on your car purchase, then I'd say just take the educational route. Yes, superchargers are more seamless and very easy to understand, and you just plug in and it starts working, and EA is getting better at that. More EVs are getting plug and charge, but you don't have to worry about which stall you park in, and you know, Tesla's growing very quickly, so I agree. The supercharger network is still probably better, but I wouldn't write it off completely, like it's not even worth buying an EV if you can't buy a Tesla. That's where I disagree, and I think with the right knowledge, you could save yourself a bunch of money if you're just looking for a vehicle that doesn't use gas, which there's a growing number of people in that market now. So
innately, this conversation that we're having is because of the multiple things, but one, Tesla's so back to order that people just can't help but have to look at alternatives. One, two, Teslas have become so expensive that they have to look at alternatives. Three, the competition is just naturally going to is catching up. At least everyone's got a little stake in the game, and it's only going to get better. A thriving ecosystem of all these EVs is the end goal of what everybody wants when it comes to electric vehicles. I want, EA to be better. I want it to be on par with supercharging. I nobody wins when one of them loses or suffers for it.
Right.
It's something that we all benefit from, and it's not for me to win, you have to lose mentality. It's just competition is catching up. It's just natural. This is the benefit of this industry, where people who have worked for a long time, at Tesla, will leave the company and then go help another company, and that they just do that. I mean, if only a certain tech company considered making an EV and they were poaching Tesla, But anyway, so the thing is that like, I'm saying all that to say that like, I think it's cool that we are able to look at alternatives to Tesla because no one suffered for having an Android except having the UI. But outside of that, everybody has a smartphone in their pocket. My dad, well, I don't think I can ever get. I'm trying, but until then, he's always on Android. But he's better connected to the world for it. I think it's great that we have alternatives, and I want there to be because then it also forces them to go back on Tesla. It forces them to get better. It forces them to step it up. If everyone puts the fire to the feet, where it's like, oh, we got to really do something with this, and if that means Tesla starts to fault in some other areas, then there's better SUVs or crossovers or trucks out there and you still win as a consumer, or at least someone who's appreciating the field if you're not in the market. So.
The only downside is the competition isn't. We're not really reaping the benefits of that yet because of EV demand being so high. Like no one's, even with the competition getting better, I'm hesitant to use the word catching up, just because that implies that it's gonna start taking away from Tesla.
Not catching up, but at least starting.
It's getting better.
They're more approachable.
It's approachable. Yeah. I know what you're trying to say, and I agree with the idea of the statement of like you can road trip cross country with a non-Tesla now and have a good time. Like it's not going to be miserable. And there's plenty of EVs now that can do it even faster depending on the usage of the superchargers and the charging speed of the vehicle. Some of these may actually beat a Tesla in total trip time.
And people care about that. They don't. There are so many people who just do not give a crap about autopilot FSD. They don't care.
Oh, for sure.
And for you,
they hate it.
They hate it. For those people, please look at this list of other EVs that are out there. We got something that's going to charge faster, go longer. I mean, some people are priding themselves on like, all right, we're not going to try to compete with Tesla's autopilot autonomy that they have going on, but we're going to compete with their battery. We're going to compete with charging speeds. By all means, there is 100% a market.
There's several beating them now.
Yeah, if I was shopping today, I would not consider FSD any part of my purchasing decision because that is not. It's still not like it's not. It's not the autopilot or FSD. That's not a standard. That's not how we drive. We're not in level 4, but it's there and it's cool to have. Cruise control that keeps its distance from the car in front of me is good enough. That is good enough. That's to me, all right, I'll do business with that. The fact that you're able to do a little bit more, sweet. But people I know, I've asked like, oh, what do you think about like, cool. I don't care. That's not what I need it for. I don't trust it. I don't want to do it.
It's pretty standard that adaptive cruise control and lane keep and stuff is.
Gas vehicles have that stuff. They've had it for a long time. I got a guy who has a Honda Civic. A friend of mine, he has like a 2018 Honda Civic, and it does that. So it's standard. But yeah, so there's definitely alternatives to Tesla. If your thing isn't the minimalistic design, if it isn't the autonomy, if it isn't the all-in-one app where if you don't want to have a home battery or whatever, you don't. If that's not your thing, and now you have other options, then there is a thriving ecosystem out there that will eventually get established. But you're right. I don't want to say catching up. I didn't know how to word it, but it's approachable.
I get what you meant, though.
Yeah, like at least now we're not living in 2014 anymore in that sense that like now we actually have anybody can take these
Leaf
trips.
or Tesla.
Right.
Maybe. Wait, that wasn't
maybe a
yet.
Bolt.
No.
Maybe.
That was,
until it dies and then it
Volt
converts
at the
over to
time.
the gas.
And Tesla was like the Rivian back then. It was expensive, and now it got more affordable, and then now it's expensive again.
The U
went back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only difference is the demand is off the charts, but hopefully Sony can make something interesting.
Yeah, I am very. This was announced a while back that Sony was going to partner with Honda, and they're going to make some company of some sort, give it some name, and then hopefully it'd be even on both sides, in which it turns out in recent news it is. It's a 50-50 split between the two companies called I think the Sony Honda Mobility Incorporated, or the Honda Sony, either or. And they're going to be
also
known
as
either or. But it looks like their aspiration to make something like the Vision S and the SO2 that they debuted, I think, last year at the, I want to say E3, but it's not E3. It's
Wasn't it CES? Or
CES.
Wasn't it a couple of years ago they first started showing them?
They showed the Vision S, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while.
And they said
Starting
we have
in
no
2025.
intention on making this thing. Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
They had no intention on making it, and then I think a year or two later they showed off the Vision O2. I think at that point they realized a lot of people like this, and a lot of people are like, there's a whole lot of buzz on this thing. It wasn't like, oh, this is cool. All right, the next thing is like, I want to buy this car. And so it seems like their talks with Honda, which I think that's probably one of the best manufacturers to talk to, because they don't have much skin in the game, but they do have the manufacturing of decades and decades behind them, able to service something. And they have that need. They want to make an EV, and they've made one, just not in America. And it seems like this will be their entrance after they partner with GM and make their new Acura and Honda SUV models in the United States with the Ultium package and all that. But I'm pretty excited. I dug the Vision S, and the SO2 didn't look bad, but
yeah, it was cool.
I'd go for it if it's a pretty good price. But again, this isn't until like 2025 that they plan on maybe start the manufacturing process on it, which maybe means we don't see it until 2026. But
I wholeheartedly but say that at least with the 2025, then if they do, I would love to see it. This all just more solidifies that a next vehicle, if you can avoid it, no one should be buying gas vehicles at all. Not saying get a Tesla.
Hopefully. Like
just stop it. Get help, or whatever that Michael Jordan
Stop
thing.
it,
Can I ask you guys a question? I will include this as my closing thoughts. But did you guys ever watch last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever Dub was? Did you see the podcast that they did afterwards that Craig and Jaws was on? That they sat down. It's
I did not.
Me either.
Anyway, I'll send you guys a link, but listeners, I encourage you guys to check it out too. Specifically, they spent a lot of time talking about CarPlay, a section of the podcast talking about CarPlay, and they all but asked without asking Craig, like, these features show that you guys are serious about the software and stuff like that, and you're making these partnerships with all these cars right now, these makers for their future vehicles. Are you guys thinking of, like, he didn't say that, but he basically then he guided that way. And
I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Craig was like, he's like, yeah, we have these. He's like, we have these really great features that are going in. It's really good. And then he paused it, and then he's just like, and he just left it at that.
The weather app.
Yeah,
we don't ship crap.
So they laughed, and it made me. I had this gut feeling that reminded me of, I think, AirTags, that they incorporated third-party things to work with the Find My and all that stuff, and showed that it was good, and then Apple immediately afterwards said, here's our version of it, cheaper, better, whatever, it just works, the whole thing, right? And then they got AirTags shortly afterwards, when we're like, oh my god, there's no AirTags. But then short time afterwards that happened. I think after watching that part of that podcast, I feel more confident we're going to see some collaboration, bare minimum of collaboration, if not a full-fledged Apple vehicle getting the stake in the game a lot sooner than I think I was initially like, maybe someday. But if they're aiming for an end of next year, so end of 2023, to have their next gen CarPlay accessible in these cars, 2024, 2025 as well. I bring this up because I'm looking at the Honda Sony thing. I was like, that date. I think 2024, 2025 is. I think that's a realistic timeline. I think that's a good goal. That it looks like things are just kind of leaning in that way. That just happens to fit. I think that's going to be a good year for EVs. Is I think ultimately where I'm getting at that, like next 2024, 2025 specifically. I think we're going to see the tech boom happen again on these EVs, and we'll get what we saw, in the early 2010s with smartphones, what we saw early 2020s or 2000s with like computers and stuff like that. I think we're going to have this renaissance of EVs that just kind of happens to, it feels like it's coinciding with end of 2024, 2025 is it's going to kick that off. And I now feel that Apple is going to very quickly get into the EV game, just based off of me trying to analyze Craig's
I need to watch
face.
that.
It was it's a good
interview.
one. Yeah, the whole I liked the whole episode. It was actually a very never heard of these guys before. And apparently, they've sat down with Craig and Jaws every year for at least 2 years now after Dub, and they would do like an hour and a half or so of this. It's a podcast, but it's an interview. And this one they did on stage with an audience because this is the first time they brought people back. But there was a good portion where they were just talking about CarPlay, and CarPlay to me was being alluded towards Apple getting into the game of cars, which to me feels like EVs. I don't think they would invest their time into gas vehicles. I think they will obviously go into this whole. Yeah, I don't think that's why they're not competing, but working with these Hondas or anybody else who's going to be doing gas vehicles now. Because then when Apple does it, like, look at our cool new electric vehicle, this, that, and they'll do what they did with AirTags. It felt like I was seeing a bigger scaled version of AirTags. Because I was like, where have I seen this before? So
I just realized while you're talking about that, Randy, that in the last podcast we talked about CarPlay a lot, and they used some renderer with what CarPlay would look like, CarPlay 2.0 or whatever. And I thought it was a Polestar at first. Now realizing it, Honda E basically fits that silhouette besides the center screen that they showed. I'm pretty sure what they did is they just took the Honda E, kind of mixed it with like Tesla simplicity and all that, and it kind of makes sense. I agree. It seems like these tech companies like Sony and Apple are like, we should probably jump in on this EV race because this is something important. In which
I think they're late. Personally,
they're late. I agree. I think Honda's late. Look how late they are. But at least they're jumping in. They're getting help from a tech company, or at least a tech company that's interested in jumping in as well. So it'll give them more opportunity for success rather than Honda jumping in.
CarPlay station.
There you go. That's what I think about as well with the Sony Honda partnership is, are we going to get a very good competitor against the Tesla arcade? Right?
Like,
are we finally going to get something like The Witcher, but instead of Witcher, it's God of War?
No, we're just going to get The Witcher because Tesla won't even make that.
Very true. Maybe we get The Witcher on the Sony Honda Vision S or whatever before anything else. But
powered by the M3.
There you go.
They so would do that.
It makes me think about Microsoft as well, if they would actually think about jumping in, because they've got the cloud. So they could apply that to any car as long as it's got some.
There's a whole Xbox in there.
EVs are the new computers. I mean,
already, I guess this is kind of diving a little bit into tech a little bit too much, but Xbox is partnering with Samsung, I think, on some displays that have an Xbox built in. So if you could do that on a display and make it still look thin, you can do it on a car easily. As long as you just have the right chips and other supplementary software or hardware associated with it.
It's the same GPU, essentially. Yeah.
So we might just see gaming transform into some type of weird EV entertainment thing, which is good because that's something that Tesla is beating everyone else at. You can be at a charger watching Disney Plus on a nice big screen or playing Cuphead or something else. You can't do that in a Ford F-150 Lightning or anything else necessarily. They've got weird old like mobile game looking things.
Flash games,
yeah, that don't look the best. So I think something like Sony jumping in with Honda is a really good thing for the EV industry in general because it's more competition. And
we need more. Period. We need more EVs total. In all production.
Make them weird. Get weird with it.
Get weird. Find your niche. I don't know exactly what Apple's going to do with it. I'm still under the belief that they want to do like a Waymo or a Cruise ride-sharing thing. And like they just will have a car that will ride people around, but you can't buy it yourself. But I still think it would be... I'm more of a doubter on the autonomous future. I think the robo-taxi thing is going to take either way longer or never than most of these companies expect, and it's just going to be too complicated, and it's not going to kill off the need or desire for owned vehicles that people can buy. And I think if Apple was smart and tried to foresee that, they would be manufacturing their own or build their own plants and build their own batteries and start building, basically do everything Tesla does. That would have been the wise thing to do. But they're playing everything too safe. They're all very calculated and, well, for the best profit return, we'll go into services and software and try to upsell our current customers on more subscriptions, and that's all they're really focused on. But looking how the market responds to EV brands now, seeing how much people invest in that and how much revenue Tesla's generating and how they've kind of turned a car into a tech product that someone's comfortable with upgrading year over year for minor changes. Like the total number of vehicles that will sell with the margins that Tesla has, and now with these high prices, like if Apple was tackling this market, oh my God, it would be fascinating. So I really hope you're right, Randy. I hope they make something or partner with Lucid or that's why I would need to watch this interview. I want to see Craig's reaction basically to the question.
It's the obvious tongue in cheek because where Craig did not say anything, the other exec Jaws, he laughed. Greg Jawoski, he goes by Jaws.
So you guys making a car? Jaws is like, and Craig.
He
is
did.
Like,
well, he goes because what he asked them was he's like, you guys have all this great software, and obviously no one's ever thought about, no one's ever considered Apple making their own vehicle, and the audience erupted laughing, and then you just see Craig just stare him in the eyes, just like he's like just looking at him like he was so good with it, but then Jaws is like like he could not keep the face, and so which then prompted Craig he made a response to it, not about Project Titan per se, but he was talking about like, CarPlay is gonna be really great, but
what if we had M1 in a vehicle or M3?
Yeah. So I kind of spoiled what the thing is, but I mean, just overall, that whole episode, that whole podcast was really cool to watch.
It'd be great for my channels.
Yeah.
Would be this epic collab.
Yeah. Would you just upload it on both channels at that point then?
It's applicable.
Better question. Would Apple Car videos get a skit? That's what we don't know.
With Craig.
I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
You do that so well.
I think
crazy, terrible idea.
Apple Car would get optimized battery charging before the iPad, and a calculator
while having an iPad as their center display or something close to it.
It's the exact same device. No, they just put when you dock it with the car, it gains all this. It runs Mac OS and everything.
You need to buy $100,000 plus vehicle to get these features on your iPad.
See, that's the other thing. I do not see Apple trying to make something that would compete with the ID4 or the EV6. It would be like a Lucid Air type of.
Or the
So no one
upcoming
could buy it.
Cadillac $200,000 sedan.
Yeah.
whatever they're building.
Oh God, I just realized they would probably make a crossover because everyone makes
Stop.
crossovers.
No,
Stop with the crossover.
please. Oh,
Never gonna
It'd
happen.
probably be a huge disappointment, but it would make for some good podcasts and some good videos.
oh
it'd
yeah.
it'd be fun to document for sure. It probably wouldn't be worth the money though.
Put on the company card, then immediately give it right back.
Apple Card customers get a discount,
Ooh, there you go.
3% back on your Apple Card.
I guess.
Apple Car upgrade program.
Oh, jeez. I guess one last thing for me
Okay.
is in the vein of the charging discussion that we had. I sent a picture in the group chat, but I saw this Chevy Silverado when I was charging earlier this week, and I thought, oh, I haven't seen someone icing a supercharger here in the Bay like ever. But then he left like I think right after me. But when he went into his car and turned it on, I heard no sound. And then he was basically
what?
right behind me as I was turning, and he rolled out forward. I didn't hear his engine. I didn't hear anything. And then when we both went onto the road, I had my window open. I had my head sticking out, staring at the thing as I'm making the turn, of course looking forward, but then looking back at the thing. I don't hear the truck at all. And I've realized that he had the charge point charger plugged into the back of his Silverado.
Ooh.
But this, I'm pretty confident this isn't a Silverado EV prototype or anything like that. The plate doesn't.
Is there a plug-in hybrid version?
There's not that either. No, I don't think Chevy's ever done that. But this is
Okay.
also an older body style for it too, or at least it's the. It wouldn't be a trim that you could get plug-in charging with because it's one of the lower tier. I guess
That's
lower
weird.
tier specs for it, but.
Huh.
My wife pointed out, you know what? It's probably a Chevy Silverado that they converted from a gas to a EV. And so they probably
Like the owner did?
yeah, the owner was talking on
Wow.
his phone for a while outside the vehicle. And
Who's
then,
this guy?
I don't know, but he unplugged something from the back of the truck. And so I'm thinking he probably maybe lost some bed space or whatever, but had some batteries tucked in there that he was charging with the charge point.
That's fascinating.
And I thought, wow, okay, this isn't a bad idea. Getting like a very cheap truck and then just tearing out all its
Pumping
guts. It's almost like van lifing, but with like making that an EV. It's the same with this truck, just tearing out all the guts of this low expense vehicle and then putting some very high expensive stuff in it. But
That's fascinating.
if you're only using
if
it
anyone knows anything about this, let us know in the comments. I want to learn more about this truck.
it was pretty cool looking at it.
Yeah. I love it. That'd be awesome if someone was finding a way to make that work. But all right, Randy already said his final thoughts, I guess. So that covers it. Thank you all for tuning in, and we might catch you next week. I might not be able to record, but they might be. So see you soon, whenever that is. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.